The silence that followed the collapse of the hidden stone slab was absolute, broken only by the wet rhythmic patter of dark elf blood hitting the cavern floor. Xeeona stood amidst the wreckage, his short sword slick and dark, his breath coming in shallow, controlled draws that burned in the stale subterranean air. He did not look at the crushed remains beneath the stone. He looked only at the shadows, waiting for the mountain to offer up another threat. It did not. The ancient mechanism had done its work, and his steel had finished the rest. As the adrenaline began to recede, leaving behind the dull throb of a fresh cut on his arm, Xeeona sheathed his blade with a sharp metallic click. He turned to find Han already busy. The leaner dwarf was not cleaning his axe or checking his wounds. Instead, he was heaving one of the fallen dark elves, the one Xeeona had run through, onto his broad shoulders. The dark mail of the elf, etched with sigils that seemed to swallow the dim light, scraped against Han's leather harness. "You intend to carry that rot?" Xeeona asked, his voice low and devoid of warmth. His cold, blue-grey eyes tracked the dwarf's straining movements. Han grunted, his face turning a deep shade of crimson as he adjusted the weight of the slender, armoured corpse. "Aye, every miserable light-drinking pound of it. It is a long walk to Stonewake, Han," Boric added, leaning heavily on his cracked shield as he wiped grime from his brow. "The air is thin enough without hauling a dead traitor up the spine." They began to move again, deeper into the old, narrow cave paths that cut through the mountain's heart. The journey grew quiet, the immediate danger having passed, but the atmosphere remained heavy with the smell of damp stone and the metallic tang of blood. For hours the only sound was the rhythmic thud of dwarven boots and the occasional wet slap of the dark elf's limp hand against Han's armour. Finally, Xeeona stopped in a wider stretch of the tunnel, where the ceiling vanished into a throat of absolute blackness. He turned to Han. "The dwarves I have known do not keep trophies that stink of the deep places. Why carry it?" Han dumped the body onto a flat rock with a heavy thud and spat into the dust. "It ain't a trophy, it's a receipt." Boric sighed, the sound echoing like shifting gravel. "In Stonewake Hold they look at us, at me and Han, and they see inefficiency. That's the word the High Captains use. They say we've spent too much time on the surface, that our eyes have gone soft and our axes slow." "They mock us, Ranger," Han snapped, his fingers knotting in his beard. "Every time a dark elf patrol slips past the northern ridges, it's our names they curse over their ale. They say we're inefficient at holding the dark back. That's why we were out there, patrolling the heights alone, looking for a fight we probably couldn't win." Xeeona watched them, his expression a mask of calm detachment, yet he felt a flicker of recognition. He knew what it was to be judged by those who sat in safety, to have one's survival dismissed as luck. He respected the blunt, wounded honesty in their voices, a trait he found far more palatable than the riddles of his own kin. "Who mocks you the worst?" Xeeona asked quietly. Han and Boric exchanged a look. "That'd be Brumir Irongulp," Boric muttered. "Owns the Anvil's Breath Inn right near the King's Gate. He's got the King's ear and a tongue like a rusted rasp. He's the one who started the inefficient pair jokes." Xeeona did not reply immediately. He reached up, the pale light catching the thin scar on his receding hairline, and a ghost of a smile, sharp, dangerous and utterly alive, touched his lips. "Let's move," Xeeona said, his voice holding a new cold edge of purpose. "I believe I have a use for your receipt." The arrival at Stonewake Hold was far from a hero's welcome. The massive iron-shod gates groaned open, revealing a city carved into the very roots of the world, but the dwarves guarding the entrance barely spared Han and Boric a glance. Those who did watch them pass whispered behind calloused hands, their eyes lingering on the ragged state of their armour and the strange, hooded half-elf walking among them. They reached the anvil's breadth. Through the thick leaded glass of the front window, the silhouettes of dwarves could be seen laughing and hoisting heavy mugs of ale. Without a word, Xeeona stepped toward Han. With a sudden fluid strength that belied his lean frame, he grabbed the dark elf corpse by its mail collar. Before the dwarves could protest, Xeeona spun. The dark elf's body became a blur of black steel and pale limbs. It crashed through the inn's window in a violent explosion of glass and wood. The laughter inside died instantly, replaced by the heavy thud of the armoured corpse landing squarely on the centre table, sliding across the wood until it came to a stop inches from a stout, gold-braided dwarf behind the bar. Xeeona kicked the door open, the wood hitting the stone wall with a crack like a mountain breaking. He stepped into the stunned silence, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his short sword. Behind him, Han and Boric stood in the doorway, their chests puffed out, the shock on their faces rapidly melting into triumphant grins. Xeeona surveyed the room, his piercing blue-grey eyes locking onto Brumir Irongulp, whose jaw had dropped so low it nearly touched his apron. "Well," Xeona's voice carried through the tavern like a winter wind. "Who was asking for a dead dark elf?" Beside him, Han let out a roar of a laugh that shook the soot from the rafters, and Boric followed suit, their voices finally drowning out the mockery of the hold.